Hello and welcome to the Monday show on Our Game. Here myself, Michael Verney, presenting along with Shane Stapleton. Shane, delighted to be back on this Monday morning again. Loads of action to review. Delighted to be brought to you as always by orgaretro.com. Use the promo code OurGame to get 15% off. Only just got this bad boy in the post the other day. Obviously, it's very near and dear to my heart. The old Carol Meets jersey, 1994. And it's nicely engraved here as well, 1994 and 1998 All-Ireland champions. You have that beauty of a Conley jersey, Wexford one from 1996. Shane, loads of action to review. Probably only one place to start, and that's county final season. And it was unbelievable down in Wexford Park yesterday.
Yeah, you know, I'd been working away, and then I came into that game, and the first half was a little bit tit for tat. Second half, then, I just thought it exploded in terms of excitement. Now, St. Martin's, to be fair to them, they're down a huge amount of players. From their last county title win in 2019, there's only something like 7 players still there. They've had players, you know, go away. For example, Joe O'Connor, he's away travelling. You know, I don't blame a lad for that. That's what people do. Rory O'Connor was injured. Jack O'Connor was only able to come on late on. They brought on Willie Devereux off the bench, Dahi Waters as well. And I thought in the last 5 or 10 minutes, Ferns were going to be under serious pressure because the 3 lads that I've named there, they're all county lads coming on the last few minutes. And you thought when the game was getting really, really tight, maybe that experience would lead them over the line. But Ferns, I mean, what a job from them. Paul Morris, he was wearing number 14, but he was roving all over the pitch. He gave an excellent performance there. Just, you know, in those club games, there's always the odd player, the odd bogey who'll let you down and spill a simple ball and it'll be a score the other way. When you have someone like Paul Morris out in the middle of the field, he's going to get the ball and generally do the right thing with it. And then the last couple of scores of the game, both came from the last couple of scores for Ferns, both came from sidelines. Cut in from like 45 yards out. The first one was broken down, knocked the ball over the bar. And then the second one cut over from, it must have been the guts of 50 yards out. Now then at the other end, St. Martin's, I don't know if you saw this or not, but Joe Coleman had a free. He knocked it over the bar and he must have thought that there was another puck out coming, that they had time. Now I don't know if he checked with the referee or not, but straight away from the puck out, the whistle went. And I'd say in Martin's, they're furious that they didn't, you know, drop it in and just see, you know, like the way Tipperary Miners against your boys there earlier in the year, you know, miracles can happen. But a killer, but unbelievable for Ferns, first ever title.
Brilliant, yeah. And as I said in previous shows, we've played them up and down quite a bit and played them in the Leinster League 7 or 8 years ago. And I was always amazed how they hadn't won Wexford. Obviously, Oulart were dominating at the time, and then the Martins probably took over. But just to see the raw emotion of it all, I think it's about 7,500 in Wexford Park yesterday. There's great pictures of Pat Bennett. Hogan, is it Ian Byrne? I think it's on the back of our paper today.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant shots. And there's more pictures of Pat Bennett getting a king's chair by the Ferns squad as well. And we'll go into that county final a little bit more, but it was a brilliant game, and we'll talk about those closing few minutes. And controversial enough, I'd say, those last couple of minutes, because I definitely thought there was another play in it as well. Just a couple of comments coming in here. Martin Furlong, congratulations to Horsewood on winning the Inter-A Championship. 5 points down going into injury time, and Sean Nolan scored 2 goals. Unbelievable way to win a county championship. I was watching the Wexford game back after, about an hour after. I watched it and I had to pause it. I had to do a bit of work and I was watching it back. And I saw a tweet that you had put up where it said, surely there was time for another play at the end. And then it was like, oh no, I thought Ferns were after being robbed at the end. And that's what I thought was going to happen when Joe Coleman put in the free. And it's funny when your interpretation of something is in some way clouded. You think something is going to happen. I was sure there was a little sting in the tail coming, but it's gas, particularly in club games, how many sucker punches there are at the end of games. And I thought that was coming yesterday from the Martins. Obviously, an unbelievable feat, missing the 3 O'Connors for like most of the championship, and even Jack was able to come on at the end, but obviously wasn't the same player. Shane, a quick one for you, and I know it's not hurling related. Well, I think it maybe is. It's in a small way, but how does the Kante Tukel handshake compare to the Brian Cody Henry Shefflin handshake?
I think they took it to another level, because there's like the absolute shock on Antonio Kante's face when Tukel kind of pulled him, and then he was like, you know, look me in the eyes or whatever it was. The look on Kante's face, he was like this. And to me, it reminded me of the very end of Terminator 2. You know, when your man is after being, the T-1000 is after going into the liquid nitrogen and he's frozen and he's trying to move around and then he pulls his arm up off the ground and it's after breaking because it's after freezing and he goes like this. I thought that was very similar to Antonio Kante. That's all I thought when I saw the pictures afterwards. But and the video at the time, it was brilliant. I mean, it's immature, it's petulant, it's all that stuff. But that's why you watch sport, for crazy moments like this.
Yeah, 100%. Like to me, great sporting contests need to have that bit of needle, need to have that bit of an edge. Like I do think that little bit of bitterness is better. It makes the games better. It makes it more exciting when they meet again. I, who have no interest in soccer, will want to know what is happening on the sideline. And obviously they were going at each other a bit throughout the game. But I just thought it was brilliant. And obviously Tukel was the one who held on. He bent his arm to make sure that Kante was going nowhere. And Kante is so feisty and fiery. I just love that. You'd probably say it did probably take the Shefflin Cody. Shefflin Cody was a handshake, but it was everything in behind that you didn't know what was going on and the potential different plot lines there. But I just thought that was brilliant. Yeah, Flash says here that Shefflin and Cody was tame, very, very tame in comparison. Yeah, potentially. But this is the year of the handshake, isn't it? As Will O'Callaghan had it on Twitter last night, and he was right. He said 2022 reeling in the years, like to be 3 probably big handshakes probably will come up in 2022. It's bizarre.
Yeah. There's a good photo as well of Stephen Poacher and John Sugru. I think it's a couple of years ago when they have there's probably no love lost between Carlo and Laois at the time. But yeah, they had a little handshake going. Actually, you might have that video of Ferns St. Aidan's celebrating in the bar last night because it looked like brilliant stuff there if you can get that up on screen. In the meantime, Grodo Go Grakon says Cody Shefflin has nothing on Tukel Kante, and Flash says, good morning, lads. Hope you had a good weekend. Definitely did. I mean, I was around the grounds myself. I was at a couple of Dublin Senior Hurling Championship games in Parnell Park on Saturday, and the weather was fine and dandy like sour candy. Really enjoyed being there. Now, I was in the shade. Easy enough being in the shade. But here's the Ferns St. Aidan's celebrations.
None of these boys were in the shade, Shane, I can tell you that. And I'd say everybody knows this song fairly well. It's great to see it. Obviously, one of the most famous GA songs that is out there, Dancing with the Crossroads. That's what it means. Club comparison. There's Pat Bennett up again.
But to me, like this song, kind of whatever it is about the team, it kind of just promotes going like this and a bit of childish abandon in the
It's gas, Shane, because Pat doesn't drink or smoke. I was chatting to him the other day for a piece in Saturday's paper. Doesn't drink or smoke, never has, and he says hurling is the only high that I need. Like I get all my highs from hurling. He looked like a man. This was around 8 or 9 o'clock yesterday evening. He looked like a man that was mentally and physically spent at that stage. But just brilliant scenes, and anybody that wonders, about the club and how much club is and how important it is, just needs to look at this thing. I know it's more parochial, it's more local, but listen to Paul Morris after talks about winning a Leinster title with Wexford, and just basically no comparison, absolutely no comparison with winning a county title for your club. And that is what it's all. That is what it's all about. Club is king, really. The intercounty maybe has a lot more eyeballs on it, but the club is king. Just a quick comment in here from Martin Furlong. He just said, based on the game yesterday, lads, who do you think has a chance of making an impression for Wexford next year? Kyle Furman has been an outstanding for Martins this year. He was indeed. I thought Niall Murphy, a fullback, was good. He was clever, I think, pulling down Dottie Waters at one stage with what was like a rugby tackle. And even the referee, Furman, probably tried to buy a free or two off Niall Murphy at one stage, and I thought the referee was very, very good. Almost brought his arms into him and was trying to kind of push him away as well. Martin Furlong also says here, Corey Byrne-Dunbar, another who impressed for both Ferns in the under-20s this year. We'll get into that game a bit more in a second. And Flash just said, thought the Wexford final yesterday was a great game. Very good contest between two pleasing sides to watch. And it was very, 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 very easy on the eye. Just a quick one, Shane. We probably missed it. I think it broke a couple hours after our Thursday show. But are Liam Sheedy and Eamon O'Shea on their way to Offaly?
Well, look, you probably know a little bit better than I would, but geographically, it's not that far away, obviously, to go up to train in Kilcormac from Portrue. I think it's about 45, maybe 50 minutes. So there's no great challenge there. Eamon O'Shea is based up in Galway. So again, not that far away. We've seen plenty of people based in Galway manage either Offaly clubs or maybe even the senior team in the past. You have no issue having outside managers. It's more often, well, you know, in your successful times, more often than not, it's been outside managers. So in terms of like the challenge, I think it will be a good one. Does it mean walking away from the Sunday game for Liam Sheedy, or could it be like Brendan Cummins last year, who was over the under-20s and remained with the Sunday game? So it could be done. Maybe the fact that he's in the Joe McDonough level, he can still, you know, be with the Sunday game. Because I'd imagine anyone who's in the position of working with the national broadcaster on the sort of flagship show, they'd be loath to walk away from it. But in terms of like a project and trying to bring up a county that's mental about hurling up to the next level and back up to Liam McCarthy, where, you know, realistically everyone wants to see Offaly up there, I think it would be a great challenge and project. What would you think, and how would it go down?
Shane, even the talk around the possibility of it happening is, you know, big buzz around the county. No, you're not being smart. You're taking a two-time All-Ireland winning manager, former inter-county manager in Eamon O'Shea, and obviously a two-time All-Ireland winning coach as well. They're obviously going down. They're taking a step down the rung of the ladder, but we need to get up a couple of steps. That would bring a big buzz and would get a big buy-in. Michael Fennelly probably put some foundations in place, and we're on a bit of a level footing now. We're still quite a bit away, but I think this will give a massive boost. Listen, the minors obviously were very good this year. He's not going to have any of those players probably for, you know, realistically 3 to 4 years before they're making any sort of an impression at a senior inter-county level. But the results have solidified a small bit, shall we say. We're a lot more solid. We're a lot more consistent, even at senior level. So from my own point of view, I think it would be a great move, and I hope we're able to pull it off, and I hope we're able to get it over the line in the next couple of days. We'll just go through a couple of quick comments here. Mikey K just says, still missed the inter-county. Club is great, but hard to get excited about anything outside your own county. Yeah, that would be the opinion of some now. I have to say, I like the second half of that Wexford final. I was all in on that, and I've no affiliation with anyone involved. So, but listen, it is important to give a bit of balance to it too.
Well, I'd a question for Mikey, and I mean this in like, I'm not trying to talk anyone down. I just want to tease it out a small bit more. But like the first few weeks when you go from inter-county to club, the point I'd make is that you're generally going into group stages. You know, Kerry and Carlow last week and Wexford this week, that's kind of the exception. But generally for the first few weeks, it's games that aren't do or die. It's group stages. There'll be a second opportunity and all that kind of stuff. But in another 3 or 4 weeks' time, we're going to be going week on week, county final, massive scenes all over the place. And I'm just wondering, for the likes of Mikey, who's making a fair point there, will that change in a few weeks' time when you start seeing these stories like Dungannon Clark's first title in 65 years? You know, more of what Ferns did, their first title ever, you know, Killadangan and Lockmore, and, you know, clubs like this. Does it kind of change for you and for everyone else out there? Let us know what your thoughts are in terms of, like, is this just that little lull right now where everything isn't always on the line? Like,
I would agree with that. There are probably a couple of weeks. Like, it's actually hard, Shane, unless you like we go very deep to try and find fixtures and games that are going on. But like, it's quite hard to find a lot of what's going on. Whereas in a couple of weeks in counties, they are knockout games. They are do or die. Everything is on the line. And that would, listen, I'd follow the club game 365 days of the year if there was no county game. But I appreciate that that's not the case for everybody. We'll just fight through a couple of other quick comments there. Flash says, a tip man leading off, Verney will be sick. We had who do we have? Father Tom in 2002. With Babs in 98 for a while. If it worked out the same as it did with Babs in 98 in the wind-up, I'd be happy enough with Eamon Kelly, obviously, as you say recently. Sean O'Sullivan just says, shout out to poor Lismore. Last year to Derry, Corrack Daly, Amara Shannon to injury, some blow, and still managed to get a big result at the weekend, which we'll go into a bit more. Jack Prendergast was outrageous at the weekend. Girod Ogo Grack on. Would have been great if Miking, the referee, had gone ahead yesterday. Can't understand why the GA intervened. I tell you, would have been very, very interesting if he was mic'd up yesterday. because listen, I don't know if Joe Coleman asked him whether there was another play, but you would have imagined that there would have been, the sideline would have said, do we have another play? Coleman would have asked the referee, do we have another play? I thought the way he was, actually Joe Coleman, the way he lines up a free, I thought was very peculiar as well. He stands over it like you would normally a free, and then he takes a step back, which is kind of unusual.
On that point, actually, and when I was covering the St. Vincent's against Crave Kieran game the other day, I was watching Tom Connolly take frees. Interestingly enough, he was taking them ahead of John Heatherton. Now, Hedgehoe took one, I think, later on in the game. But the way Connolly was taking it is, so he's a left-sided striker, and he puts the ball down by his left foot, so the front foot. And it's very similar. Like normally you'd see players and they have the ball more or less between their 2 feet, but he has it very much towards his left foot and then sort of rolls it and strikes it over. And, you know, more often than not, he was knocking him over. But I was kind of thinking it was a bit like, you know, when a golfer drives the ball, they have it very much to their left foot for the drive. But when they're doing an iron, normally it's between the middle of the feet. So I just thought that was interesting, apropos of nothing, really. But I do want to go back to an earlier point that one of our viewers asked a question about, which was who from that county final might be, you know, on Darragh Egan's radar with Wexford. Like Kyle Furman, like you said, he has been putting up big scores. Like, he's not physically the biggest guy in the world, but I think he's somebody that they'll certainly look at. Davy Codd, who I had with the UCD Freshers last year. Again, not physically the biggest player in the world, but a really nice stickman. And just we didn't actually name him. It was the man who scored the winning point, Johnny Dwyer. What a cut over the bar for that last point. Brilliant stuff. And I'd say he didn't buy a pint last night, I'd imagine, and he won't be buying one today, and he shouldn't be buying one for a long time.
He was absolutely brilliant. You just knew by him. He scored a point in the first half where he ended up out in a bit of space out in the middle of the park, and you just know he's one of these players blessed with an unbelievable amount of skill, and just to have the gumption to go for that point at the end. It was a huge score, and it obviously came out to the right and kind of came back in. And he, as you said earlier, he put that line ball in. About a couple of minutes previous to that, where one of the subs knocked it over the bar. We'll just go into the Wexford final a bit more, Shane. The goal, like what a goal! What an amazing goal! Pat Bennett said after that, is it Joe Breen? I think is his name. Patrick Breen. He said he says he's one of the best footballers in Wexford. Well, he definitely proved it yesterday. I couldn't believe, it's not often you see a lad kicking the ball off the hurl. It was an outrageous finish. Actually hit the back stanchion and kind of came back out. But it was badly needed at the time because the Martins had really, really turned the screw.
Did he sort of miskick it a little bit? And it's not easy. It's not easy to kick a slitter. I think everyone knows that because it can go anywhere when it hits off the laces of your boot. But what a solo! Get himself into position. I suppose when you're right in front of the goal there, you're probably going to hit somewhere in the goal. But Jesus, fair play to him for doing that. Do you remember in the second half then? Joe Barrett went on a solo run for St. Martin's. He came out from the back and went up the left wing. He played the ball across, and I'm trying to remember who was it that had the presence of mind to give him the stick pass back across. It could have been Jack O'Connor. It could have been Kyle Furman. I'm not entirely sure, but he was then in, and instead of sort of taking the touch or faking one way and shaping inside and finishing, he hit it at the defender. And obviously that was snuffed out, but that was a huge opportunity. And I did think, to be fair to him, he'd probably just run 80 yards there. To ask him to be able to do a little shimmy at the end of it was probably a lot. But
he was really brilliant, Shane, I have to say. I know he was picking up Morris at different stages. He got a lovely point off his left, made a couple of great interceptions, a couple of great kind of catches. It was probably, like, you just can't plant your feet really at any stage in any high-grade hurling. He planted his feet and just gave the defender, as you say, the defender had gone gung-ho. He just thrown himself at it. A sidestep and the ball was 100% in the net. 100% in the net.
Hey, fair play to Ian Byrne for staying going as long as he did, because he clearly couldn't move. He wearing number 9 for Ferns, and he was moved into full forward, and a lot of high ball was trucked in. To be fair to Conor Furman, he was catching some of it. And there was a period where Ferns just seemed to be hitting high ball after high ball after high ball. And I made a smart comment at one stage, you know, just as I was watching it, going, geez, another high ball. They've been working out well. And of course, Byrne snapped it then, and you could see he couldn't quite fully move, but he blasted it over the bar. So fair play to him. He was obviously taken off a little bit later on. But geez, Pat Bennett wasn't shy of using the subs. From the 57th minute on, he used 3 substitutes. And sometimes just that small bit of extra energy on the field can help you. I mean, St. Martin's, as I said, they brought on a lot of quality county players towards the end of the game, and it almost helped see them across the line. But yeah, they'll be kicking themselves to some degree. You can't help but think Rory O'Connor would have been a difference maker out there. And 1 point defeat, you know, you throw in a player, arguably the best player in the county, and, you know, that's a tough one for them. But a long way now for Ferns before they go into Leinster. But I think when you've had your breakthrough county title, it might be no harm to have a bit of a break.
Just on Pat Bennett, like the one kind of common theme throughout the whole year is it seems to be his rootlessness. He dropped obviously the captain, I think Willie Byrne, for the semi-final. He pulled off 2 lads at half time, I think, in his first game, and he said I think they all thought he was mad. He's no problem whatsoever running the bench. You get your chance, you don't take it, and it's basically next man up. As regards the layoff's going to be very, very difficult to manage. There's no point in saying any different. I presume they'll take a fair time out and they'll get back on in, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks. I don't know how many of them are kicking football as well. So it's going to be a very, very tricky one to manage. As regards, there was a question in there from SSRI just asking, are Ferns better than Rapparees last year with the long layoff before the Leinster Championship affect them? Well, they beat Rapparees by a point after extra time in a semi-final, so they're probably of a very similar standard. There were times yesterday in that game where there was probably a lot of mistakes and a lot of ball going to ground. I thought it was much better in the second half. There was probably a nervousness on both sides, even though Martins had won in 17 and 19. I think the guts of about half of their team were playing their first county final. Apart from Paul Morris, James Thompson, a few more, none of the Ferns lads had hardly played in a county final before as well. So there was a lot of nervousness there. I'd say they're probably of a similar standard, SSRI, to be honest with you. Sean O'Sullivan just says there about Pat Bennett as well. Pat Bennett also involved as coach with Kerry. What a commitment to make do both. Yeah, he was telling me he's driven back from Kerry to Wexford several times. He stays in Paul Morris's dad's house anytime he needs to stay down or anything like that, or if they're training on a Saturday and playing on a Sunday or anything like that, he stays down. But it is a massive commitment. He took over as manager this year, having been coach for the last 3 years, and he thought he was stepping aside, but they didn't let him step away. And listen, I find it funny, like, in a club, like, no matter what you do, you're forever going to be associated with that. Even a lot of time in the GA, it ends up sour because that's the nature of it, or someone stays too long or whatever. But like, they're all immortalized basically down in Ferns after getting their hands on the first ever Wexford title down there.
Do you know what? I'm sure some people wonder why we're having the show at 10:30 today. But the reason is something I didn't know about you. But it involves, is it Henry de Bromhead and Rachel Blackmore and yourself?
Yeah. We've a horse with Henry de Bromhead, and Rachel Blackmore is riding the horse today. The horse is named after an off-fleet GA icon, the great Matt Connor, who is actually involved in a small way in the horse as well. So he's running in the first at Dundalk today. So I'm going to, once this show is over, I'll be flying up the motorway to Dundalk to see how he goes, get a good look at him. He's a 2-year-old horse running the opening maiden at Dundalk, and it's hugely exciting, I have to say. Very, very exciting. You don't until they take to the track, you don't really know what you have. So I can't wait to see what he produces today. He's been trained by the Gold Cup winning trainer, dual Gold Cup winning trainer. He's been ridden by the Gold Cup winning, Aintree Grand National winning, 2-time champion hurdle winning jockey, Rachel Blackmore. It's hugely exciting. And funny enough, Shane, as well, there was a hurling connection with a big winner down in Tramore yesterday. Anthony Daly, Mark Landers, TJ Ryan and the boys had the winner of the bumper at Tramore yesterday, and the parade ring could barely hold the 400 of them after. So just turn on racing TV today, and if there's somebody yelping and going mad around 2:12 on the telly, you'll have a fair idea who it is.
So will I put Everton on it?
max them out. With due respect, Joseph O'Brien has an odds-on shot in the same race, and our lad might have a bit of an each-way squeak, but I'd say he'll need a longer distance than 1 mile, I'd say. So in time, he could develop into a nice horse over 12 furlongs. But can't wait to see how he goes today. And please, anybody, don't be atting me if he doesn't come first, second, or third, or wherever today. And if he comes last, right like that, don't be slating me either.
Do you think that would be in me now? To be fair. Hey, have you ridden the horse? Have you ridden Matt Connor?
I have not, no, and I don't. I haven't. I did a few equestrian lessons when I was about 5 or 6, and I haven't been near a horse since. But have a huge interest in it, and there's a nice little syndicate involved. Good old crack, and yeah, really looking forward to it now. It'll be listen, our bubble. We have a nice big bubble at the moment. There could be a pin put in the bubble. I tell you what, Shane, I was actually involved in a horse before. Right good horse, actually. It was called the Chevalier Choisi, with a lot of the same guys that are involved in this horse at the moment. And he won his maiden on the same day that we were playing Kilkenny in a crucial league game back in 2011. We had to beat Kilkenny to try and avoid relegation, and Tip had to beat Wexford. And the horse was running at 2:25, and our game was starting at 2:30. So before the match, I was kind of thinking about the race or whatever. But you know, once the match starts, you just totally forget. And I remember at half time, I never thought about the race at all. And then at half time, I was like, geez, I wonder how did the horse go? And Paul Cleary, who was on the Offaly panel, was involved with the horse as well. And I just looked over at him like that, the eyes up, and he just gave me the thumbs up like that. I had a nice few quid on a 5-1, and I was delighted. But then you know, attention switches back to the match again. But we were beaten by Kilkenny, and I was like, damn it, we're after getting beaten. But sure, it's okay. We'll retain our Division 1 status. Then it was announced over the tannoy that Wexford were after beating Tipperary, so we're after being relegated. But then I was kind of thinking in my head, geez, my horse is after winning the race at Navan today. This is absolutely unbelievable. Like, you know what I mean? So it's very bittersweet, but we still had a good night celebrating the horse after. We destroyed a few pubs in Bur that night. But hopefully the scenes will be something similar today in Dundalk with a bit of luck.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The Hurling for Cancer game is on tomorrow as well, so I think it'd be great if people could get out and support that as best they can. Obviously, you know, I'm not entirely sure if everyone can make it to it, but if you can, I'd say it'd be no harm at all. By the way, actually, this is just something as well. Mikey Kay had said that he does agree that the county finals garnered that bit more interest. But actually, I'll just play this video here. So this is the one of the end of a Fossa game at the weekend. And the amount of people, just you can see at the top of the screen, sprinting up to David Clifford. It just shows that, you know, when people say that, oh, you can't win the hearts and minds of kids with club. And I mean, obviously, he makes a lot of his reputation at county level. But as I said, growing up, when an awful lot of time it was about the club, there's a huge amount of kids there, and their heroes are the players that are out there representing the local club. So, look, again, I just think hearts and minds are always going to be won, even if there was no county scene. Fair enough, young kids will always love Premier League and all that other sports as well. But you'll always have those local town heroes. If your local parish is all about Gaelic football or hurling, like the best players in that team will be the heroes of the kids. Like I grew up and thought Aidan Ryan was absolutely class down in Borrisoleigh. And like I think if I was growing up these days now, you would be looking at some of the main lads if you were a kid, and they'd be your heroes too. Yeah, no, I love that video, Shane. There's a young fella in the green jersey at the bottom of the screen, and you can just see him. He's a long way to go to get to Clifford, but he's definitely going to get to him. There's a great picture after of Clifford jogging off, and all the kids are jogging after him, even though he's already taken the pictures and signed the autographs. Flash just said there, Clifford is a true superstar, and he really is. Like, he's an unbelievable ambassador. Like, that's not to say all players have great time for the next generation and that, but like he's mobbed after Sigerson games, he's mobbed after club games, he's mobbed after county games, and he always gives his time. And inter-county players in particular are great at that. In fairness, they know there's a duty of them to give back. But what you said about the club game winning the hearts and minds, like, you had a local hero. I had a local heroes in Borough as well. Obviously, Sid Whelan, Johnny Pickin, and all these boys. And there are local heroes in every club in the country. And that's, you know, the county game. I love the county game. Absolutely love it to bits. But, you know, a lot of your heroes are the people you see down in the pitch. Like, you were down pucking in Borrisoleigh when you were a young fella, or maybe kicking a soccer ball even, and looking at different lads there and thinking, geez, I'd love to be him. And I was doing the same. And there were young kids down in Kerry thinking the same about Clifford and other lads at games that they were at all around the country. So I don't buy the argument, you know, that we're losing, you know, all this eyes on the GAA, or, you know, because the eyes are more even intensely focused on all these games all around the country. And I'd love to do it. It would be a tough task, but I'd love to, you know,
talked to all county board officials after a big weekend of GA, where there was club GA going on in every county, and accumulate how many people were at those games. Because on a bit, just say All-Ireland final weekend, fair enough, 82,300 people are in Croke Park, but go to a big club weekend. Like if there was 7,500 in Wexford Park yesterday, there was Offaly Club Football Championship on, there was, you know, the guts of God only knows, a couple of thousand all told, and you join that all up. Don't tell me that there's not, you know, not a huge appetite for club GA, or there's not a huge appetite for GA in the absence of the inter-county game.
Yeah, it's probably just the eyes are more dispersed because there are so many games and everyone's got their passion, which is their local team. By the way, you played a match, a Junior B football match on Saturday evening. What was it like in the temperature, and were you gasping? Would a Mayor Ishka have done, or did you need the water break?
It was awful, Shane. I won't lie. It was absolutely awful. The game was played at 6 o'clock on Saturday evening, and it's listen, like a lot of things in life, you only appreciate something when you go through it. And I just started thinking about the All-Ireland hurling final in particular, and the effort that the guys were able to put in for the guts of about 80 minutes in about 28, 29 degrees, dead heat, where you're hardly able to breathe. It's so hard to catch your breath. And it's just phenomenal. The levels of fitness that the GA has gone to, particularly at the inter-county game. I just grew a huge appreciation for it the other day, because I was playing Junior B, which was stop-start, and I'd have a reasonable level of fitness. And no matter what, you'd still be absolutely dying. I was still sweating an hour after the game. You'd be wrecked. And just that county players, and just to pick out one player in particular, when you look at Gerard Hegarty, like he didn't tire in the All-Ireland final till like the 73rd or 4th minute probably. And that's probably after covering, I'd say he could have covered 12 or 13K with his max speed for God knows how long. So it just increased my appreciation for what county players are able to do and the levels that they've gotten to, because, you know, I'm kind of half happy that the temperatures have turned a bit and the weather has turned a bit, because for me at 35 going on 36, I don't know how sustainable it is to play too many more games in that heat.
Do you know, speaking of players playing in that heat, there was that great charity game going on over the weekend. Tipperary and Limerick lined out against each other, and you can see John Carroll and DJ Carey, who of course is a regular, Kieran Carey, who's a regular on the channel, running around the place there. I think that's Tom Condon in the background as well. Here's another one involving, I think it's John Carroll and Kieran Carey as well. And I'm sure there are plenty of pictures out there that aren't just with John Carroll and Kieran Carey, but two legends.
Pretty sure the great Owen Kelly was hovering in the background as he normally is as well. Yeah, but that, like the jerseys, like Shane, I don't particularly like Tipperary, obviously, but that Finch's jersey is as nice of a GA jersey as there has ever been. It's an absolute beauty of a jersey, and you know, the Arga Retro, like these jerseys are on a different scale altogether, and people love their bit of nostalgia. If you love your GA nostalgia, you won't find anything better than these babies here. Obviously, use the promo code OurGame to get 15% off at argaretro.com. Shane, we might go into the Waterford Hurling Championship a bit. Obviously, it's getting towards the. Go on, you want to come in?
Yeah, just before we do, there's a story breaking here at the moment in the Belfast Telegraph, and it's a pretty serious one here. So I'll bring it up, and it involves Kieran McFall. So the story here is from Stephen Moore. GA star accused of beating man so badly he could lose kidney back playing days after court date. And just the story goes, and it's hard to comment on it too much at the moment, but just to read the story. Derry GA star is accused of beating a man in the US so badly he could lose his kidney, was back played just 4 days after appearing in court. Kieran McFall is facing years behind bars if convicted of a raft of charges related to an alleged brutal attack in Boston. The 28-year-old former county player appeared at the South Boston Division of Boston Municipal Court on Wednesday, August the 3rd, where he was charged with the assault and battery with a dangerous weapon causing serious bodily harm. District Attorney Kevin Hayden described McFall in court as having a hunger for violence, which resulted in potential lifelong impacts on a victim who was doing nothing more than standing on a street corner with friends. But just 4 days later, having been released on bail with strict bail conditions, including he wear a GPS tracking device, McFall lined up to play for the Donegal Boston Gaelic football team alongside Dublin's 6-time All-Ireland champion Paul Mannion. McFall is also banned by the court from drinking alcohol and has a special device fitted to detect if he breaches that. One picture shows McFall playing in a Boston Senior Football Championship last Sunday, where he helped his side win the semi-final, and so on and so forth. Just a very, very serious story, and very, very disappointing. And obviously it's hard to comment too much on that because, of course, the situation is ongoing. But it's just something very striking that I saw breaking there in the last couple of minutes. Yeah, look, I mean, I can't really ask you for comment because of the way it is. But like, you wanted to talk about the Waterford Senior Hurling Championship, so let's dive into that.
Yeah, we'll dive into it. There's plenty to dive into. Just go through a couple of the results quickly. 4 Mile Water had a great win over Clonea. It was 324 to 19 points. Jamie Barron with 1-3, including a penalty that he won. Soft enough penalty, I have to say. When I look back at it, I thought it was soft enough. De La Salle 24 points, Passage 12. Big win for De La Salle after taking a fair shellacking against Ballygunner the week before. Ruben O'Halloran got 7 points from place balls. Brian Cunningham fired over 4 from play. While Eddie Barrett and Jack Fagan chipped in with 3 each. Owen Connors was top scorer for Passage with 5 points. Killian Fitzgerald and Liam Flynn got 2 each. Shane McNulty was dismissed in 2 yellow cards for De La Salle. Sean O'Brien actually pulled off a brilliant save from a free at one stage. Great reaction save. Couple of the other results there. You might go into Abbeyside and Tallow, Shane. Abbeyside 220, Tallow 314.
Yeah, this was meant to be a bit of a cracker now. Abbeyside finished with 14 men when Captain Dara McGrath, he was sent off in 2 yellow cards by the 38th minute. But Mark Ferncombe, who, you know, the manager said he's like a fine wine, he keeps getting better. He hit 112, 11 frees there for the Villagers, and he set up a goal for Willie Beresford. Michael Kiley and Michael O'Halloran, they had 3 points each. Patrick Herney also had a couple. Former Waterford attacker Tommy Ryan, just, you know, a man who goes around like he's on speed in terms of the speed that he has. He scored 211 for Tallow, including 11 frees, and Ryan Gray also hit a green flag. So Lismore were mentioned earlier with all their injury woes, Irla Daly, Mara Shanahan, and so on and so forth. They beat Dunhill 220 to 18 points. Jack Prendergast, who's been on fire, he scored 113, including 11 frees. So that's 124 in 2 outings. Jamie O'Keefe got the other goal. Killian Bonner, who I presume is potentially a son of Colin Bonner, because I know Bonner has been living down there for a long time. He was the top attacker for Dunhill. He got 4 from play. They won the intermediate title last year, but 18 or 16 wides here would have been very costly for them. Dan Shanahan, he started at full forward. There can't be too many 45-year-olds starting senior championship across the country, so fair play to him. He scored a point and assisted 3 more. And Lismore coach Fintan O'Connor said he was so unselfish with the ball. Every ball that went in, it stuck. And he's an example to the lad. His attitude is unreal. He's like Peter Pan, I suppose. He'll never grow up. Then there's the preliminary quarter-final draw. Richard Hogan says it's Colin Bonner's son. Yeah, as I thought, I just wasn't absolutely sure. Sean O'Sullivan actually says Sean O'Brien really came on last year. This is the goalkeeper for De La Salle. Had my doubts about him in the first year of Intercounty, but really showing he belongs at that level. But the quarter-final draw is interesting. 4 Mile Water against Passage, Lismore against Clonea, Abbeyside against Dunhill, and De La Salle against Tallow. And I think it's the likes of Ballygunner are already through to the quarter-final proper as well. So the Davy Fitz was around the grounds, wasn't he, as well?
He was indeed, yeah. He was. I think he was at a game on Saturday, and I think he was in there yesterday as well. I believe there was lots of kids streaming up to him, looking for photos. Obviously, a hugely popular figure in that regard, and he's fairly well papped by people, no matter wherever he goes as well. But obviously, he's going to be without a couple of players for next year too. So Kieran and Shane Bennett will not be available to him. Pat, their father, obviously, who trained Ferns to win that Wexford County title, revealed that Kieran was heading down under next week, and Shane is set to follow him in January. Stephen will still be available for next year under Davy, which Waterford folk will be glad to hear, but probably disappointing to lose both Kieran and Shane. And Pat just had a quick word on Davy's reappointment. Pat's obviously very friendly with Davy and has been involved with him when he was in Waterford before and also in Wexford. He just said, I'm delighted. As a supporter, I'm delighted. He's a proven winner. He's got a CV better than anybody. My lads are really excited, even though there's 2 of them going to Australia. So it'll only be Stephen left. But I think the players in Waterford are over the moon and delighted he's coming in. Like, he's going to bring them to a new level. So they're really looking forward to it. Interesting to see if he can take them to a new level, because you know, the last 2 games of Munster aside, they're at a very, very high level. So it's going to be really interesting to see if you can take them to a new level. Really interesting to see what way they play as well. You know, will they adopt a sweeper? Will they play more traditional? And yeah, we're only going to see that when they take to the pitch. But that is going to be fascinating.
And I wonder, will Austin Gleeson be used in a way that Lee Chin was used the last couple of years with Wexford, in terms of, like, sometimes he'll be back down the field, sometimes he'll be stationed in full forward. And then will Stephen Bennett almost be like the Rory O'Connor sometimes doing the same thing as well. Or maybe Desi Hutchinson, you'd imagine, will be inside most of the time. But maybe there's scope for him to play maybe centre forward and use that burning pace to try and expose centre backs who like to hold. Then, of course, he's really good at shooting from close distance. I don't know if we've seen just yet at inter-county level, can he actually take a score from 65 regularly as well? Now, I'm not saying he can't. I just don't know yet because we haven't seen it. Like, some forwards are really suited to taking those scores inside. If you're going to be centre forward, you need to be able to score from huge distances. But another thing that was interesting is that Waterford GA chairman Sean O'Regan, he's already implored Daisha fans to give David Fitzgerald a chance. Now, Frank Roach did a piece about this just, I think it was Thursday or Friday. And the quotes from Regan, who led the four-man selection committee in terms of appointing a successor to Liam Cahill, said, no matter what name was brought tonight, there would be reservations. We as a committee were given the trust of the clubs and the executive to go away, and we did that. Davy now is the new manager, and we should be hugely excited about it. I know there are a lot of people hugely excited about it. People need to give Davy a chance, give the team a chance. Waterford County Board are going to put in the most professional setup that we can for the players and all our inter-county teams. Everybody needs to give Davy a chance and support the team as Waterford supporters do. I no doubt we'll get the best out of what we have, and hopefully that will bring Liam McCarthy back to Waterford. So a couple of things there. It's very interesting that in an opening statement from a county board chairman that he's imploring people to give him a chance, because that would suggest not everybody's on board with it. Now, I'm sure there's an awful lot of people who are, but then also in the same breath to be talking about the Liam McCarthy Cup, which kind of puts it to number one. He's like, give the manager a chance, but also I think we have a fair chance of winning the Liam McCarthy.
Yeah, I'm a bit split on this. I don't know if there was obviously plenty of dissenting voices, or he wouldn't have come out and said what he said. Sometimes I think it's better to say nothing, but he's kind of half talking out both sides of his mouth in a way, saying to give the manager a chance and then saying, you know, we're aiming for the very, very top. Sometimes, like, personally, and I know I'm a journalist and I want people to talk, but sometimes I think you're probably better to say nothing in some instances and just let it.
Say it best.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, you won't take them boys' jobs anyway, somehow. It's fair to say. But Davy was on WLR himself on, I think, Saturday morning as well. So, and you know, he was always fairly frequent on Southeast Radio as well when he was in Wexford, which is, to me, that's smart, you know, because you keep the locals happy, keep the locals interested, give them plenty of information and show your passion for the job. But
well, actually, interestingly, when Liam Cahill was being given the opportunity to manage Tipperary a year ago, I got onto him and said, would you do an interview? And he said, well, to be fair, I should probably just do it locally with WLR first, because, you know, they are the local and all. And I thought, you know what, fair enough. And like, it would only make sense for Davy to talk to the locals as well, and just, I suppose, give him an idea of how he's feeling, where he thinks the team can go and so on. So I totally agree with that. By the way, Plash had an interesting comment earlier. He said a serious potential exit for the Sunday game. Pat Spillane, who's obviously confirmed he's gone. Colin O'Rourke will be Meath manager. Kevin McStay, potentially the Mayo manager. Davy, he's going to be over Waterford, so of course he won't be involved in the Sunday game. And then potentially Liam Sheedy, if he's over Offaly, remains to be seen if he would also double job with that. So that would actually mean quite a changeover for the Sunday game next year.
Yeah, St. and Verney for the Sunday game.
Don't see why not.
Just a quick comment there, because I know Sean O'Sullivan mentioned it. He just said that Pat Bennett threw a bit of shade at Liam Cahill in the wake of yesterday's Wexford final. I'm just going to read out the quote. He's just talking about Waterford in 2022. He said, they won the league, they were flying, and we all know what happened after that. Everybody that's hurling might know what happened. Liam knows himself what happened. He's learning as well. These lads are brilliant lads. They got a rest. 14 of them went to America, so they enjoyed themselves, and they're raring to go now again. So while they might know, and there might be, you know, little bits of tidbits dropping about, you know, what actually did go on in Waterford, only those probably inside the camp really know why the wheels came off. They're obviously close enough to beating the All-Ireland champions in round 2 of Munster, albeit the All-Ireland champions missing some of their best bodies, and the wheels completely came off thereafter. So just on Davy and his style of play as well, one thing that definitely cannot be said, they have a surplus of forwards nearly. They have like some of the best forwards in the country. So, you know, I as a neutral do not want to see Desi Hutchinson playing 2 men inside with 3 defenders and him spending most of his day chasing after a fella. And I hope that's not what we see. I hope I hope the game plan is tinkered to what Davy has available to him. And to me, I think he's got some serious attacking weapons available to him.
Yeah, well, Jamie Barron remaining fit, and obviously it's great that he's after scoring 1-3 for 4 Mile Water there over the weekend. Tyke de Burka, of course, staying fit throughout the course of the year. That's massive. He's such a key player, the linchpin at centre back. Conor Prunty had a couple of injuries this year as well. So assuming they all stay fit, as long as Caleb Lyons stays fit, and obviously you've talked about the 2 players that they're going to be missing for next year. That's a bit of a blow. But there is talent coming through as well. It's not like there aren't always players coming through, and not to put pressure on them, but that young Fitzgerald's the cousin of Pádraig Mahoney. He looks like a player coming. Might be a little bit soon, but there is talent there, and there's players that had long seasons with Ballygunner last year, the likes of Ian Kenny and maybe Peter Hogan, who didn't really get in for the full season like they might have ordinarily. Maybe they'll have a bigger part to play next year. So, I agree with you in terms of the style of play. It's got to suit what they have. You have to cut your cloth to meet your measure. I wonder, do you think there's any chance that, having worked together on the Sunday game, that Derek McGrath might be somebody that we might see involved with Davy? Because, the likes of Pat Bennett, presume he won't be involved. Saoirse Bulfin is going to be the manager of Meath. And I'm not sure about JJ Doyle, who's been involved with Davy in the past, but there is going to have to be, he'll have a different makeup of his backroom team. So who knows? Maybe there's now a relationship with Derek and he might feature.
Yeah, potentially. I can't remember. I was reading quotes from somebody where they said that a phrase that you used there said that Derek and Davy were cut from the same cloth, or they do think quite similar about the game, and even how their teams set up are somewhat similar. So I wouldn't be that surprised whether Derek would go back into Waterford as a coach. I'm not so sure. If you've been the top guy in your native county, and as manager you control things, you dictate things, whereas as coach, not so much. That will be interesting to see, or whether Davy, I'm sure, will pick Derek's brain on it anyway. But his backroom team is going to be fascinating, because a lot of the regular faces that he has had with him over the past 10 to 15 years are not available. So it's going to be fascinating to see who he gets, and whether some of the Waterford legends that were players when he was last manager are now maybe now get back involved with him in his second coming there as manager.
Yeah, but I suppose the other side is when he's been involved with Fate Harriers, I think he has been the coach, and there's been a local who's been manager. I know Eddie Brennan enjoyed doing the coaching after being managers. Like, some players haven't done a spell. Sorry, some people haven't done a spell as a manager. They come away from, they're like, do you know what? I'd rather be doing more of the coaching. So look, obviously this is all theoretical talk, not really based on anything. It's just they clearly have a small bit of relationship anyway from the Sunday game, and in some ways you can kind of put 2 and 2 together and get 5. Richard Hogan says Mikey Mahoney is another. Harry Ruddle was picked for Ballygunner at the weekend. No to Derek McGrath, not after last year's quotes. Presume talking about how any team that beats Waterford will be winning the All-Ireland. And obviously it did. I mean, Derek McGrath didn't score the goals and points against Waterford last year, but obviously there's been a huge stain on the back of that. Grodogo Gracon, Eamon O'Shea went back as a coach with Sheedy. Rochford could be back as a coach with Max Day, and obviously he's been a coach with Donegal the last 3 years. Yeah,
no, I think Eamon O'Shea will admit himself that he's happier in the role of coach, and he felt like he almost had to step into the manager's position when he did, but I think he would openly say that he's happier in the role of coach. But speaking of Davy, obviously a proud Clare man, and I believe he's involved with O'Callaghan Mills. We'll go into the Clare Senior Hurling Championship, Shane. Busy weekend down in the Banner, and probably there's only one place to start, and that's a massive upset victory for Smith O'Brien's over Ina Kilnamona. Smith O'Brien's were last year's intermediate champions. Ina Kilnamona were last year's county finalists, and it finished Smith O'Brien's 215, Ina Kilnamona 20 points. Like, if you were doing what do we call it again? Power rankings of Clare hurling, Smith O'Brien's would have been well into double digits, and Ina Kilnamona would have been in the top 3. So this is a huge upset, especially considering Aidan McCarthy hit 15 points, and Smith O'Brien's were still able to find a way.
Yeah, those SOBs, Smith O'Brien's getting the victory over Ina. A lot of people call him Ina Mona. So I believe down there in Clare. Let us know if that's what people refer to them as. But like Aidan McCarthy hitting 15 points, not the only one. Like, for example, David Tracy hit 15 points over the weekend. Get your comments in and let us know who did the most scoring over the weekend. And we'll be talking goats later on, who should be the goat. But yeah, to be fair, like Aidan McCarthy had a great battle with Keane Nolan, who we saw playing for Clare this weekend during this game as well. Kevin Stritch had a 23rd minute penalty that kept the Killaloo men in touch. And David O'Shea's goal in the 45th minute really kicked them on. But yeah, this is a big surprise, because I think Inamona had themselves in a good old spot. And Grodo Gracon says never called them Inamona. But anyway, that's what I've heard from the locals anyway. But
you've already started doing it now. You called them Inamona there, saying that they're called that, and then you called them Inamona mid-sentence. So we're, you know, if Gerard is anywhere close to that place and he has any links with it, he knows that that's not what they're to be called. So we might just leave that one. We might leave that one lie now for a while.
But do Smith O'Briens want to be called the SOBs? And I mean, obviously in the Stone Cold Steve Austin way, where it's positive.
Yeah, I highly doubt it, Shane. Somehow, I highly doubt it. What immediately comes to mind when you say that is, remember that episode of The Simpsons where Gabbo ended up on TV and he ended up getting thrown off TV because he was caught calling kids whatever you just said there. I was supposed to be off the record, but it turns out it was on the record. But no, we might leave that one lie as well and just revel in their victory at the weekend. But as I said, lots of other big results in Clare. Wolftown Shannon 119, Crusheen 118. Dahi O'Connell's last minute goal. We're talking about Dan Shannon's 45. Dahi is 40, and he got that winning goal at the end. And as Derek Lynch from Clare FM said to me, Dahi is the one who famously put together that great tweet measuring the distance where Aidan McCarthy fouled Jake Morris to the goal to the road in the Gaelic ground. So he'll forever be immortalised with that one. But a big win for them as well. And obviously Ballyea had a fine win too. Tony Kelly
puts Crusheen into relegation bother too as well. And they were in the county final just a couple of years ago. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, they're obviously struggling a good bit at the moment now, and that was a bad weekend for them. And it's funny, you know, in counties like Clare where it's, you know, ultra competitive, you're kind of teetering a thin line between potentially getting into a prelim quarter final or, you know, a quarter final proper and being on the other end in a relegation game. Like we're playing Senior B with Borough at the weekend. If we win, we're in a semi-final. If we lose, there's a potential for us to be in a relegation final. I always think it's awful calling it a relegation final because people want to play in finals, and that's a final that nobody wants to play in. But it's thin lines in Clare as well, definitely. Very, very thin lines between being in the knockouts, being safe, potentially getting a good run to a county final, and potentially being down intermediate.
Yeah, Richard Hogan, he's trying to cut down the name of Bursley to Brisley. How's that, Shane? Yeah, not too bad.
I've heard worse.
Boyley, something like that maybe. Ballyea beat Clare Castle, so that's a parish rivalry there between the two of them. They're both in the one parish. County footballer Aaron Griffin, he scored 7 points from play. Morgan Gary and Paul Flanagan were also good for Ballyea. Owen Wallace was the stalwart in defence for the Magpies, and Bobby Duggan, he scored well, including a good goal. And Tony Kelly scored 3 from play, including a couple late on to help them pull clear. Cratloe, I believe, were very impressive in their performance against Broadford, who were recent county finalists, 223 to 16 points. Second half goals by Podge Collins and Rian Considine. Clooney Quinn beat Kilmaley, 13 points for Peter Duggan there. And Fecal 216, Newmarket and Fergus 216. Killian Bain hit an equalising goal 8 minutes into injury time. Like you talked about Dahi O'Connell's 58-minute goal, 68-minute goal there for Fecal. Goals either side of half time for Owen Guilfoyle and Colin Ryan helped put the Blues into a decent position. They were 2-10 to 9 ahead and looked comfortable. But then that goal for Shane McGrath in the 39th minute ignited them. And I think there was an interesting picture here that was put up by... I'll just bring it up on screen here.
This is a brilliant shot. It just shows you what it means to get a big result in a club game. Obviously, Ever Quilligan, the Clare goalie, hanging out of goals.
Yeah, there we go.
Fair shot. It's a fair shot to catch it in real time like that. Obviously delighted with the result. Well able to do a chin up, I'd say too.
Yeah, looks like it. Fair play to him there, and fair play to Fecal for pulling that one back. Aero Guinness beat Scariff. Goals by David Reedy, Mikey Maloney, Danny Russell, and Shane O'Donnell. And Mark Rogers hit 2-8 for Scariff. Very interested to see how far the likes of Mark Rogers goes next year, and if he'll nail down a starting place. And Clonlara beat Whitegate 120 to 19 points. 6-point tallies for Cahill, Tots O'Connell, and Ian Galvin, and Dylan McMahon got the goal there. So plenty going on. You want to read out a comment there?
Yeah, Garrod Ogo crack on. He's a Magpie originally myself, so he's a Clare Castle man. Happy to lose only by 4 points to Ballier as the battle between Broadford, Clare Castle, and the Mills to avoid relegation likely to come down to points difference. Yeah, no, I was actually mildly surprised with that. So Clare Castle obviously put up a good showing despite going down by 4 to despite going down by 4 to Ballier. And Richard Hogan just says Dalo involved with Clare Castle. Yeah, he certainly is. Dalo was missing in action in Tramore yesterday. He's part of that Come On Racing Syndicate as well. But I think he was pulling points down in Murty Browns. Shane, we might move on to the Dublin Championship. Your own boys Coola had a right good win at the weekend over Nafina. I think was it 125 to 215. Came with a strong late run. You were on co-commentary for Dubs TV. What was it like? What's it like commentating on your own and trying to remain somewhat impartial? I can't see you remaining too partial or too impartial somehow.
Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately, I'm going to have a pop here and there, whether I mean to or not, because I can't quite keep the tongue under wraps all the time. Oisin Langan, who was doing commentary, he said to me afterwards, even when you're not trying to have a cut, you end up having a cut. So I'd say there's one or two cooler lads who might be sore with the odd comment, but they'll know it's no different than what I did when I was in there training with them. But David Tracy, very good. He scored 15 points. Mark Shute, when the ball went in, he was very dangerous. Liam Murphy scored 1-2 from play and won a couple of frees as well. He was good. Colin Cronin was a huge part of the team here. He had a great battle with Liam Rush, who was centre back for Nafina. But it was just actually when Nafina were trying to bring the ball out, he was one of the key men in terms of stopping them up and driving them back the other way. So they were some of the key men. For Nafina in the first half, Sean Baxter, he wears number 4, and even last year when he was coming up and scoring for Nafina, like he's a man who scores goals on points, wears number 4, so it looks odd, but he just basically seems to play midfield. He scored 1-2 from play, I think, in the first half. There was also a penalty that Donald Burke scored for Nafina to put them in a good position. I thought it was a little bit soft. I said it in commentary at the time, that was a bit soft, but it was kind of a collision between Diarmuid O'Flynn, who was man marking Donald Burke at the time. To me, it seemed a little bit soft, but O'Flynn wasn't facing the ball. And, if you're not facing the ball when a high ball is being delivered in, or any ball is being delivered in, the ref can give a free, so because you're supposed to contest it and face the ball, as you know. I mean, probably everyone has given away a free at some stage with that. But to be fair to Nafina, they didn't have Sean Curry, who scored 8 points in last year's county final. They didn't have Colin Curry, who's a Dublin senior panellist. As the game went on, Shane Barrett had to go off. Obviously, we've seen him play for Dublin over the years. And Paul O'D, who'd been delivering really nice ball in the first half. AJ Murphy never really fired. Tom Gleeson did a little bit here and there. But there's probably an awful lot more in this team for Nafina. Conor McHugh, obviously the footballer, he was very good at full-back. He was man-marking Mark Shute. And Shute was very good, but McHugh, at times, he won some great ball as well. But there's a lot more to come from Nafina, because when you're down that amount of quality and all of them have been in and around the county panel, it's going to take an awful lot away from a team, surely.
At club level, Shane, you lose 1 or 2 and you could be in a bit of a bother. As you say, bogey is the word you always like to use, that teams are carrying a bogey. Like at club level, you're not the best teams.
We've been that bogey.
The best teams, same as actually, for a long time. It's very hard unless you're, an elite club team like a Ballyhale or a Ballygunner. Maybe you're not going to be carrying anyone really. And it's difficult when you lose a couple of players like that, and they'll be hoping to get everyone back fit for probably the knockout stages. I'd still be surprised if they don't make the knockout stages. And as they showed last year, they easily could be defending Dublin champions coming into this year. Yeah, and they should be realistically. So I'd be confident enough in them kind of bouncing back. Other games, most of the other games, as you go through the results now, seem to go fairly much to form.
Yeah, well, look, number one, the Dublin Championship, they've changed it from 4 groups of 4. They've changed the championship to having just 10 teams instead of 16. It's 2 groups of 5. The top 3 get into the knockout. Teams who finish 4th and 5th, they play the opposing teams in the other groups, and 2 teams go down. So 2 teams will actually come up next year. So it kind of means that you're always playing for something in this Dublin Championship. If you finish top of your group, you're straight to the semi-final. Second and third in the opposing groups play off in the quarterfinals. So I think it's a really good system that way. By the way, make sure to sign up for the Thursday show. We were previewing all these fixtures last Thursday. Patreon.com/OurGame. Takes about 45 seconds to set up, and you'll just get a whole host of stuff there. And it'd be brilliant if you could support the channel. But to go through some of the other results, Kilmacud beat St. Bridget's 25 points to 115. Crokes took over in the second half because Bridget's were in a good spot in the first half, and just there's a lot of quality on this St. Bridget's team, and I've seen some of their other fixtures earlier this year. Like, look at some of the players they have: Paul Winters, Owen Dunn. Unfortunately, Keane O'Sullivan is out with injury. They also have Andrew Dunphy and a couple of other very good players there, the likes of Johnny McGurk playing midfield, and obviously Alan Nolan, who had only just recently stepped down from the Dublin panel. But I look at that Crokes team, and after winning the county title last year on the back of losing 3 finals, they've got a lot of quality there. I mean, Davy Crowe and Dara Purcell, who are number 5 and number 8 in the match programme from the weekend, 2 really good players that have only come out of freshers in the last year. Oisin O'Rourke's been a county panellist for a while, along with Fergal Whiteley, Ronan Hayes, and then Alex Considine, who was playing for the county last year. So they have a lot of good quality there. I do think there's more in St. Bridget's. Obviously, they've lost that game, but I think they can kick on again. St. Vincent's, they beat Crave at the weekend, and Vinny's pulled away late on. But Crave, like, they played well, but again, lack of scores hurt them. It was 220 to 213. So in their 3 games, Crave have scored 14 points, 114 and 213. So it's 14 scores and 15 scores. And that's just not going to be enough in senior hurling over the course of an hour here. There was some players who stood out quite well for St. Vincent's in this game. I'd say that John Ederton had a pretty good game. Brian Bulger came into it. Rian McBride, very good. Tom Connolly was quite good. Conor Burke came into it. Derek McBride was excellent. So he's one of the McBride brothers. But he went off injured with what looked like a hamstring in the second half, and he will be a huge loss there. On the other side for Crave Kieran, Robbie Mahan, I think he scored 1-3. He was really, really good. Paul Kelly got a couple of nice scores, and Keane Derwin did some decent stuff. Also, Steve O'Kelly playing wing back and kind of sweeper. He was good. And then I suppose the final fixture from Dublin, Plunkett's 219, Jude's 15 points. Now, Plunkett's had lost, but been quite good against Coola the first day out. Jude's had been pretty decent in their first outing, but they lost this one quite comprehensively. So that's a great win for Jude's there. I suppose I'll throw over to you then for the comments or for the Down Championship.
Yeah, Richard Hogan has just asked us, have we reviewed Kilkenny yet? We have not reviewed Kilkenny yet. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. A couple of other bits to go through first. Garoda Gracon just says here, seems to be a lack of goal threat from Kilmacud Crokes this year compared to last year. They had a serious goal threat last year, definitely. Also, was Oisin O'Rourke part of the Dublin panel this year? Don't remember seeing him on any match programmes. I don't remember seeing him part of any Dublin squads this year, to the best of my knowledge. He didn't feature from my memory anyway.
I'm trying to think if he did or didn't, or am I mixing it up with last year? I feel like he was involved, but I'm not sure if he made any appearances this year. But look, I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not 100%, but if I was to go my gut, I'd say that I don't think he was. Just go through another couple of results here quickly. Obviously, the Down Senior Hurling Championship, maybe a bit away from the headlines, but still going on. And there's obviously a mad hurling following up there. Portaferry had a big win over Breda, 220 to 8 points. Ballygalget had a fine win over Newry Shamrocks as well, 320 to 27. Believe there was a bit of controversy around the refereeing in that game, and there was a bit of uproar on even Twitter last night. Was just seeing from the Down manager Ronan Sheehan, who's involved with Newry, just about the standard of refereeing in Down, and it's something he wasn't particularly happy with. I'm just going to jump to the Galway Senior Football Championship quickly, Shane. Then we come back to Kilkenny hurling.
Yeah, I have the Kilkenny results here for whenever you want to jump back to that.
A big weekend in Galway. Loads of action here. 6 of the 18 teams have now won both their opening games, including the reigning champions Mount Belly and Myloch. 2020 winners Mike Cullen, Cara Finn, who were obviously 7 in a row winners in 2019. Milltown and Tube Stars. John O'Mahony is involved with Salthill Knocknacarry. He's the manager, 2-time All-Ireland winning boss, obviously. They had a big win over Damien Comer's Anna Down, 118 to 1-8. Rob Finnerty was on song there, hit 1-5 from play. Damien Comer pulled back a goal for Anna down, but that was really one-way traffic. It was one-way traffic between Mount Belly and my lot and on Caharurua as well. 3-16 to 11 points. Barry McHugh hitting 2-5. Mike Cullen had a good win over Uachtarard. Owen Gallagher, the former Antrim player, he impressed for Mike Cullen, shooting 5 points, and Desi Keneally got the goal in this local derby clash, and Cara Finn had way too much for Lettermore, 324 to 9 points. Dylan McHugh, who was wing back for Galway this year, Gary Sykes, who was still going strong at 37, and another former county player, Martin Farrer, they got the goals for Cara Finn. A big win here, and I'm sure they're keen to bounce back, having not won either of the last 2 county titles. They were going for 8 in a row in 2020, beaten in the latter stages, and they haven't got their hands on the Galway title since. So I'm sure they'll be going home for it this year. But just hand it back to you, Shane. We'll just go through some of the Kilkenny results. I know Richard Hogan was asking. I know he's a Mooncoin man, and I saw that the Mooncoin players stopped in the river in Inistioge for a dip after their game yesterday. They were happy men after winning yesterday, and Jesus, you'd want to see, or you'd want a river close by to you to recover, even you'd nearly be going in before a game.
Yeah, sure, like down in Borrislee, you'd be going into the sand trap after a game. I'd say there's teams up and down the country doing the same thing. It's ideal if you have the seaside just close to you, but other people have to go at it other ways. So in Group A of the Senior Hurling League, which obviously leads to the knockout section of the Kilkenny Championship, Tullaroan, they were defeated by Mullinavat. And with the way Tullaroan had been going, that was a bit of a minor surprise to me. 218 to 117 there. Shamrocks Ballyhale, they beat Lisdowney 216 to 117. So pretty close result there. And I wonder over the course of the year, with Joey Holan being away, how much will that count against them? Or is there enough in reserve for Ballyhale that they'll be able to keep that 5 in a row tilt going? And then
Ben, is Joey holding away for the duration of the championship or just the summer? Because there seems to be a lot of players, like I know, like Cormac Daly was in the States earlier on this year, or definitely saw a transfer, but was is back around Lismore. There's a lot of guys, like we're getting towards the stage where guys would nearly be coming back, going back to college, going back to school in the next week or 10 days.
What I was led to believe is that Joey's away for the year. Look, remains to be seen, but that's just what I've heard from people from Ballyhale. But look, remains to be seen. The other fixture in Group A was Clara beating Erin's Own 317 to 115. So the scoring done there, Liam Ryan hit 1-3, Jason Byrne hit 4 frees and another one from play. Chris Bulger 1-1. Paul Cody scored a goal. For Erin's Own, Jack Buggy, he led scoring there with 110. 5 frees, a line ball and a 65 as part of that. Shane Feehan with 3 points and Conor Delaney with a couple. So just in terms of the Group A, then Clara are top with 5 points. Shamrocks are on 4. Tullaroan next on 3. Lisdowney and Erin's Own, they're on 2 apiece. Actually, and so are Mullinavat as well. So that's a really tight one. A few more rounds of games to come, but really, really tight. Then in Group B, Bennett's Bridge, they continued their 100% record there, 218 to 17 points wins over James Stevens. So that's James Stevens. They've lost 2 or 3 games at this stage. Dixborough beat O'Loughlin Gales in the City Derby, 217 to 113. So that's, I wouldn't say it's a hammering by any stretch of the imagination, but 7 points is a decent victory nonetheless.
That's a couple of games in a row, Shane, where O'Loughlin's have really struggled to keep that scoreboard ticking over as well. They were paltry enough kind of shown the week before as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Greg Ballycallan, they were beaten by Glenmore 221 to 215 there. And Glenmore, obviously, it started brilliantly against the Village, lost the last time out, and good to get a victory there. So that puts Bennett's Bridge at top, 3 wins from 3. Dixborough next with 4 points, as are Glenmore. Then 2 points each for O'Loughlin Gales and James Stevens, the Village. And Greg Ballycallan, they're at the bottom with no points from 3 games. So plenty going on in Kilkenny at the moment, but an awful lot more sorting out to do before we get to the knockout stages. Yeah,
Andrew, you know yourself, Shane. It's kind of like the Kerry Club Championship that was going on at the weekend. You can't read too much into the stages until it gets to the point where you could be out on your ear. That's when Ballyhale have shown it back through the years where there was a potential that they could have ended up in a relegation semi-final and end up winning a Club All-Ireland. So it's we're only in the early stages of it, and a lot of lads just getting back into the groove after kind of long enough kind of county seasons as well. We're just going to have a decent look at just actually a result from the All-Ireland Junior Championship final, the ladies football replay. Antrim had a comprehensive win over Fermanagh. How often do we see that in replays, games going completely different directions. So really big win for them there. What was he looking at? 13 points after playing out an epic draw the last day. And just go into the Cork Senior Football Championship. And to me, there's only one place to start here. I look back at the highlights of it. There's an absolute belter of a game between Nemo Rangers and Castlehaven. It finished Nemo 3-13, Castlehaven 1-16, 2-4 from Luke Connolly. And he also scored 2 goals when they met in that delayed county final a couple of years ago. Nemo scorched ahead early. They were up by 6 at half time, leading 2-9 to 1-6. And then Castlehaven came firing back. It was 2-12 to 1-15. And then Connolly intercepted the ball, got a great solo goal to win it for them. But the goal that we're going to focus on, Shane, is, I believe you have it ready there, a Cahalan family special. Like, it's not often that this happens in a game where the 3 brothers combine.
No, it is sideways, so you might want to tilt your screen.
Sean Walsh inside towards Conor Cahalan. Up the line goes to the older brother Damon. Good run on the loop from Conor Cahalan. What's the option inside? It's a long ball inside to the younger brother, Jack Cahalan. In on goal. Oh, no! What a finish! Conor, Damien, and Jack. What a game we have on our hands.
Well,
that's actually...
He's a very good left-hander in hurling. So I'm wondering, is he a left-footer in football as well? I know he was involved with the senior footballers this year, I think, under John Cleary. So I think he's left-footed. I'm not entirely sure. But what a goal that is. And I'd say the brothers were fairly lording it in the old bar that evening if they went out for a few pints.
Well, after losing, Shane, I don't know if they would have been lording.
But we did our bit.
They might have had a drink amongst themselves, maybe at home, but they'd be disappointed that it was actually a cross-field ball played across the field that Connolly intercepted, and he scorched through about 65 yards and rifled one to the net. Like, Connolly's a lovely player to watch in full flow. I don't know if it's because the socks are pulled up and he has those calf warmers almost to try and avoid injury. The thermals that he does have on his calf to avoid a calf tear, but that was a brilliant performance by him, and obviously a great goal by the 3 Cahalans there as well. I'd encourage anyone to go back and look at the highlights of that, and it's all there on YouTube if you want to watch it as well. And it's a great chain that in recent years as well, and COVID has basically done this because we didn't really see much before that all this footage is there on Twitter, on YouTube, that you can go back and at least see the goals, see the highlights, that all this stuff isn't like just me putting out a tweet saying, was at a game today, saw a goal for the ages, but nobody's able to see the thing. It's great. That's one really positive development of COVID, in fairness, that people are, if something happens, and even that stampede towards David Clifford, that people are taking footage and it's out there for everybody to see. I think it's great.
Yeah, and like, how can the club game grow in terms of like national interest if people never see anything about it? And then like the first time a match of a club team is on TV, you're like, I haven't a clue who any of these players are. I don't know what they've done before. At least now, the more you see this, people might be like, if Castlehaven come on telly in the next couple of weeks, and they have been on telly in recent years, that you'd be like, geez, I wonder how the Cahalans will go. Or if Lismore were thrown on TV, you'd be like, well, I know Dan Shanahan's playing, I'm mad to see it, and I wonder is Iarla Daly back and Mara Shanahan, and so on and so forth. So that's where I'd see that'd be another reason why the club game can grow. And like more counties doing what Wexford GA did recently, which was, go into the clubs, do a little video in the week leading up to the county final, that they were down at the beach with Ferns and they were interviewing the players and they were watching them puck around at the beach. And, it doesn't affect how the county final goes. There's no reason not to open up. And if one team opens up, other teams will open up. And if county boards just go to the clubs and say, look, we're going to do it with everybody, no one's going to have an advantage. Can everyone buy in here? I think that's how the club game grows a bit more in terms of national interest.
Totally agree with you, Shane. Yeah, and it has to be something that, to me, it's all, the basis of the GA. One of the things is promotion, doing whatever it takes to promote the GA. Like, I was delighted, like, that Pat Bennett had no problem doing an interview for the paper on Saturday. And why should he? There's no fear of you saying something. Like, it's like people aren't stupid now. You're not going to say, oh, you're not going to have a cut at the other team or anything like that. But to me, one of the bases of the GA is it's a responsibility of players and managers. And if they don't want to do it, then let somebody else do it on their behalf, to promote the GA, to talk about the games, to make sure that people know what's going on. And I think what Wexford GA did was great. I have to say, I think the Martins tried to pull the wool over our eyes. The the manager said that Jack and Rory were definitely out and would not feature this weekend. And I think everybody knew that Jack would feature potentially at some stage in the dying minutes of it. But like it just does go to show you, like, there's no bad luck associated with doing an interview. You do it probably on the Monday or Tuesday or maybe the Wednesday, and it's over then. You forget about it and you just focus on, you know, the game at hand.
Yeah, for sure. There's plenty of comments coming in there if you want to have some of them are reflecting on the Kilkenny Championship. Richard Hogan, I'll start off with this one. Evan Shefflin picked at full back for Shamrocks. Mullinavat pulled off a mini shock against Tullaroan. Bridge with another victory, and Borough won the City Derby against O'Loughlin Gales, losing a couple on the bounce. Joey's supposed to be gone for a couple of years, says Joe Butler, referring to Joey Holden. O'Loughlin's are struggling, away for the year again, says Richard Hogan. Colin Fennelly, not sure. Colin Fennelly will be back in a few weeks, according to what TJ said in a recent interview. Yeah, as TJ put it to me, he was away on a J1 and said it with a bit of an old smile on his face. Richard Hogan, 4 sendings off in that City Derby. O'Loughlin Gales hit bad wides, and Joe Butler adds in that they were awful wides there. So plenty going on in that championship. If you want to
just a quick one as well, Shane. I believe Tullaroan beat Clara by a point the week before last, I think. But there was definitely a bit of controversy about, I think everybody had it, except the referee, had it that it was a draw. All the journalists covering the game had it that it was a draw. So I had heard that Clara were putting in an appeal. By all accounts, from what I'm hearing, the referee was the only one that had it that Tullaroan won by a point. So I just think that would be an interesting scenario if you come at the end of a game and you think you're after drawing and the referee says you're after winning by 1. But the local journalists who were reporting on the game are adamant that it was a draw. And in that sort of scenario, you're recording facts. It's very important to have independent people there who are, not in any way biased or anything like that, for a second or third or fourth opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And Joe Butler says, talk about promotion of hurling. I was at a first round game at the Mayo Championship on Friday night. No programme, no team sheet, no scoreboard, but it happened in Tip, Kilkenny, and so on and so forth. So that is a bit disappointing.
Just on that as well, Shane, and I know I was made aware of it yesterday, but Boris Kilcotton played Rose and Alice in the Laois Championship yesterday. And for whatever reason, the jerseys are quite similar. And I don't know how this wasn't flagged in advance. But Boris Kilcotton had to turn their jerseys inside out for a championship game, which is just bizarre. It's mind-boggling stuff that situation could be allowed to arise. Like, we play Shamrocks not every year, every second or third year. We're both green and red. When we play them, Shamrocks have an away kit, a white kit. It's always, conversed beforehand that can you wear your second strip, and there's no problem. But for that to happen for a championship game is mad stuff, really.
Yeah. Killian Harris, we actually have the video of this score. It was in the game with Ballincollig. Andrew Cotter of Douglas scored a last-minute equaliser against Ballincollig. Shawnee O'Shea-esque, 60 yards out by the sideline down in Páirc Uí Rinn. You might have that video there, do you?
Yeah, I'm just going to tee it up here now. I didn't realise just how good this was until I look back at it. Like, to me, Shane, this doesn't look scoreable. It just doesn't look scoreable from where he's taking it from. It's absolutely outrageous. Clutch free.
And it's the 7th minute of injury time.
Yeah, here we go. This is you see where this is from.
Right. Here we go now.
This is possible.
What happens here? Andrew Cotter has
like,
this
look at the
free
angle of it, Shane.
to level the game.
He's 60 metres realistically at an angle. And it's
6
a right
points so far for Andrew Cotter. 5 of them from frees. This will be the biggest of all. He's given it a fair belt. It's on its way. It's gone over. More from Andrew Cotter.
Unbelievable. You could have had Darragh O'Shea, you could have had Mike Quirk,
55 out, was he?
Incredible.
It was absolutely outrageous. That's as good of a free as you will see. Like, you'd have that. Obviously, it's not at the same level, but it drew the game. It had to be scored. Like, you'd have that up there with Shawnee O'Shea's. You'd have it up there with Rian O'Neill's. Just absolute top-pass kick from the wrong side as well.
Yeah, and for Andrew Cotter, maybe he'll never have a bigger kick in his life in terms of, like, last second, really far out, pressure's on, result on the line. So, I mean, in his head, maybe he'll have just as much nerves or there's just as much on the line for Shawnee O'Shea in the game he's played. Actually, just because it barely went over the crossbar, I was thinking, do you remember a couple of years ago when Tommy Walsh and David Moran were on the line for Kerry, and there was a last-second free, and he was going to hold him up like in a rugby line-out as well. I wonder, was there any sort of, like, has that ever successfully happened? Because potentially that was an example where it might have worked.
It probably would have worked because it just dropped over. That was Tommy Walsh and Dave Moran for Dean Rock's potentially match-winning free to draw on 2019 All-Ireland final.
That was it.
I wonder, like, you know, putting referee in a fairly awkward spot there. Like, it's gas. No matter how long the GA goes on, new things will always happen that are not in the rule book. Like, I don't know. I don't think that's written in the rule book. Anything like that you can't do anything like that. And it's amazing. You think you have every box covered, and it's only when people get innovative. If someone had been heist there, you probably just needed a foot. You probably just needed a foot and the hands ever so slightly up over the crossbar because it just dropped over and was coming at an angle as well. But yeah, hats off. Amazing kick.
Yeah, St. Finbarr's beat Carrigaline with minimum fuss there, and they're unbeaten with a healthy score difference of +20. So they're cruising in the group. They're in the knockout phases with a game to spare. And Brian Hayes at full forward, he top scored with 2-3. Stephen Sherlock, I think he's only played 15 minutes so far. He's been injured, so to do it without him is fair going. Plenty of other games in Cork, but we'll move on. The Galway Intermediate Football Championship was an interesting one because Shane Walsh didn't line out for Kilkerran and Clonberne. Obviously, we're in the midst of that transfer saga with Kilmacud Crokes, but they beat Headford 2-8 to 110 without him, so that's pretty good going nonetheless.
Yeah, brilliant. They got a goal. They were down 1-9 to 1-5, I think, and came with a big push at the very, very end. Like, it's gas. People were getting very excited on Twitter in particular because that match program appeared with Shane Walsh named at 14. It was funny. Headford actually retweeted someone back saying you definitely will get to see Shane Walsh. He's named at number 23 for us. They had a Shane Walsh named at number 23. But that program was printed a couple of weeks ago, and it featured every squad that was in the Galway Intermediate Championship. So I don't even know if Shane Walsh's transfer request was in at the time.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
It hadn't been at the time.
So that's it. That's in transit or in movement with Croke Park at the moment. Going to be fascinating to see. Probably might hear something this week about. It would be fascinating to see. He's obviously hoping to play in the Dublin Senior Football Championship this year with Kilmacud. If it doesn't go through, it'll be interesting to see, does he just go straight back with Kilkerran Clonberne, or does he potentially take the year out? But it's all going to play out over the next while. Imagine the boost he would be coming back to Kilkerran Clonberne if the transfer doesn't come through.
And imagine the boost to Kilmacud Crokes if he goes there, and they're already winning without him and Paul Mannion. Throw the two boys in and you might as well forget about it in terms of trying to predict who's going to win Dublin and maybe even the All-Ireland. I mean, ridiculous. Imagine the two of them playing in a Croke Park match for Kilmacud Crokes. Oh, undefendable.
It'd be crazy, wouldn't it? Yeah. Like, imagine, say, Kilmacud nearly won All-Ireland without Paul Mannion, without their best player, without one of the best forwards in the country. DG, did it ever happen that someone stood on the crossbar to stop a point? Now, to be fair, that would
be... He stood on the crossbar to stop Clare in 98.
Yeah, we did, yeah. Well, we stood everywhere to stop Clare in 98. But, like, you'd need a stepladder to do that, in fairness. Like, that would you'd need 5 minutes to get somebody up on the crossbar.
Derek Holan would do it handy enough.
Well, Derek maybe would be, or he'd get someone up there fairly handy, I'd say, too. You'd be a brave man. You'd literally be just standing, holding the post, hoping that the ball is going to go over there and just wave your hand. But, yeah, someone I'm sure will get innovative. In time. Richard Hogan just said as well about that incident in Laois. He just said Tullaroan played in second kit yesterday. Yeah, like most, definitely county teams do. Some club teams have a second kit as well, and it's just an option. It's just an option there if you need. Yeah, Ballyhale have a second kit as well. Obviously, they have the white and the green. Shane, we'll just fly through a few more games quickly. And the Donegal Senior Football Championship. This was the opening weekend. It finished Killybegs 2-13, Glenfin 1-13. Hugh McFadden inspirational, I believe, and he found the back of net in the first minute. For Killybegs, big win for them. No, Jason Byrne, the son, who's a regular contributor to our game, would be a happy man. And so I saw him tweeting about it. He'd be a happy man with that result. Kilcar had a big win over Milford as well. Kilcar, obviously led by Paddy McBrearty, finished Kilcar 2-18, Milford 1-6. Guidor 2-13, Ardra 8 points. Big win for Guidor there. Eamon Collins scored 2 first half goals. for the hosts there. They led 2-7 to 2 points at half time and never really looked back. You might go down through the last few games there.
Yeah, Agrua beat Rail Namara 1-8 to 6 points. Their local derby between two South Donegal sides. So Shane McGrath goal and points from Diarmaid McInerney, Michael McKenna, and 2 from Eddie Lynch put them 1-7 to 3 points ahead. Bundoran, they tried to come back and Gary Clancy converted 3 frees, but it was a comfortable win for the Ballyshannon side in the end. 4 Masters, they beat Clockaneely, I should say. Sorry, it was a draw, 2-7 to 110. And let's see, the home side performed well, and they were 1-4 to 6 ahead at the halfway, with Alex McCalmont getting the goal, while Jason McGee got a few scores for the visitors, who went ahead with Killian Gallagher scoring before the water break, making it 1-9 to 1-6. Both sides got one last point before Masters found the back of the net thanks to Jamie Crawford, who scored 1-4, and that drew the game there for them 2-7 to 110. Like I said, St. Eunan's, they beat St. Noel's and beat them well, 114 to 7 points there. St. Michael's, they drew with Sean McCool's, 1-11 each there. And then Glen Swilly, who's of course Michael Murphy's club, they drew with Naomh Connell, 2-8 to 111 there. They came out flying and they were 1-2 to no score ahead, with Michael Murphy getting 1-1 of that. But there was a bit of a comeback there, of course. In Cavan, the opening weekend also, there was plenty of fixtures, but I suppose just to talk about the champions, Ramor United, they beat Kingcourt Stars 2-11 to 1-9. Jack Brady and Shawnee Keoghan getting the goals there for Ramor United. In Antrim, just
on Cavan, Shane, quickly, I know I had said it, I was chatting to Mickey Graham after the Tailteann Cup, and his quotes would have suggested, and his demeanour maybe would have suggested that he wouldn't be staying on, but he is indeed staying on. He's staying on for another 2 years. And it's funny, just when we're talking about football, it's very, very quiet on the managerial front. Donegal's nominations closed today. As of last week, there were no nominations to replace Declan Bonner. Obviously, Monaghan are looking for a replacement as well. Jason Sherlock's name had been mentioned. Haven't heard a dicky bird about that in the last 3 or 4 weeks. There are a lot of kind of big jobs up for grabs there. And it just be interesting to see what sort of work is going on behind the scenes there and what sort of guys are being lined up.
Yeah, I go through Antrim and Tipperary, and then you might finish off with Offaly. So Antrim, just one fixture to double reference here. Port Glenone had a 15 points to 12 win over Ahagill. In Tipperary, there's plenty of fixtures going on, but I suppose the ones that would catch people's eyes are Lockmore Castleiney. They beat Moycarkey Burris by 3-14 to 8 points. Lockmore, of course, are the county champions, and they roll on with goals from Cian Hennessy, Liam McGrath, and Conor Ryan. Kyle Shelley, he shot 6 points from Moycarkey. 5 of those came from frees. Clonmel Commercials, they were meeting Upperchurch Drumban, who've been playing well in both codes there. 2-11 to 9 points was the margin of victory. 2 second-half goals through Sean O'Connor and Conal Kendi, a couple of county players there. And you might go ahead with Offaly.
Yeah, I'll fly through Offaly. Yeah, so Tullamore and Road are straight through to the semi-finals. They topped their 2 groups. Tullamore had a 2-14 to 6 points win over Cappin-Curd. They're the reigning champions, obviously. Road had a 2-13 to 15 points victory over Clara. Just a quick one there. Donica Boyle did an interview with Niall McNamee promoting his new football boots. I don't know if you've seen them, Shane.
They're white.
Yeah, I wouldn't be wearing them. The black version of them potentially now, but the white version, I don't think you have to be. I think you have to be a silky inside forward to be wearing them. Don't think a lowly cornerback or a fullback will be wearing them. If you were, you'd probably be a brave man, in fairness. I haven't seen too many defenders wearing colourful boots because it's too, like, if you get cleaned, it's like, oh, your man with the white boots is getting an awful scutcheon, or your man with the yellow boots is getting an awful scutcheon. But Niall just had a word in today's paper. He just talking about his inter-county future. He just said, I actually have no idea, that's been honest, and getting married on New Year's Eve, I wouldn't be doing anything before Christmas. I don't know. But the body is good. It's more like, do you have the motivation? Body-wise, football-wise, I'd be fine. If I was a betting man, I'd say he'd still be involved for 2023. If your body is in good shape and you feel like your football is in a good place, I'd say he's probably going to still be involved. They had a good win again yesterday. Eden Derry beat Durrow 116 to 8 points. And the other result then was for Ban 3-14, Shamrocks 3-11. And Offaly's under 20 All-Ireland winning captain Kieran Dolan suffered a serious enough injury. Talks of it being a dislocated kneecap and potentially a cruciate in that game. There was a big stoppage in that game. Thoughts out to go out to him. He's going to have a fairly long layoff ahead of him. Hopefully he'll get back at some stage next year to feature for Offaly. He had featured at various stages in the league and championship this year, so hopefully he'll be back. The quarter-final pairings are Ferban against Clara and Eden Derry against Shamrocks, with Tullamore and Road awaiting in the semi-finals. And I think, Shane, that's our lot. I think we've got through everything there was nearly this weekend.
Goat of the week.
Oh, the goat. We actually forgot the goat of the week last week, would you believe, yeah?
We wronged ourselves.
My goat of the week anyway, Shane, would have to be the one and only Johnny Dwyer, just for that sideline cut. He had the hand pass for the goal in the Ferns win as well. Huge display, and a couple of clutch moments when they were badly needed. And obviously getting over the line in their first county final. Huge display.
Yeah, I'd have to give it to Robbie Cotter for that late free. Sorry, Andrew Cotter. What a free. So securing that point for Dublin. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable free. Folks, that's all for the Monday show on Our Game. Flash, thanks a million. Just a great show again, lads. Always appreciate the feedback. The show, once again, was brought to you by orgoretro.com. Go to orgoretro.com to get 15% off. Use the promo code OurGame. And we will see you on Thursday for the preview show. Thanks a million, folks.
Sign up for Crokes.